Okay, the hour of 6 o'clock is upon us, so we are ready for our regularly scheduled city council meeting. Today is August 19th, 2024. So we will begin with an invocation offered by Reverend Kathy Bilderbach, and I hope I said that right. Please come forward of the Evergreen Mennonite Church. So if you'd all please stand for that, and then please remain standing afterwards for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray together. Lord, we pause before this meeting, knowing that you are here in your presence, guiding and directing. Thank you for all that have given their time and attention to preparing for this meeting and the agenda. Thank you, too, for the mayor and the council, and the commitment and the service that they offer, the wisdom that they offer, and the clarity. We pray, too, for their families and the households that they come from. May you also bless them and be near to them. Thank you for everyone who is here tonight as we gather to care for the city of Caldwell. May your presence be known among us. May your spirit of wisdom and clarity, may your spirit of peace also prevail as we do the business of this city. In your name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much for being with us this evening, Reverend, and beginning us with prayer. We very much appreciate that. Madam Clerk, if you'd please call the roll.
Doty?
Here.
Stoddick?
Here.
Register? Here. Williams?
Here.
Allgood?
Here.
Dittenberg?
Here. Very good. Thank you so much. All city council members are present and accounted for. Are there any conflict of interest declarations from any members of the council regarding any items on the agenda this evening? Okay, and we do not have any special presentations. Do you know if anybody signed up under? Okay, so we do have 3 people signed up. So 2 of them have indicated for airport RP discussion. So if it is on the agenda, I know there's an airport item, so when you do speak, this is not for anything on the agenda, so just make sure that it doesn't touch on the item that is on the agenda regarding the airport. So Justin Harrison signed up first. So Justin, do you want to come forward? Or
I'm a little confused on that if we can't speak to what's on the agenda.
so that'll happen later in the meeting, just not right now. This is just audience participation for anything that's not on the agenda.
I didn't see anything for what was on the agenda.
Okay, so it is, because it's a little unique where it's not a quasi-judicial matter, so that's why there's not a sign-up sheet, but we will make sure that you do have the opportunity to speak at that time. Is that the same for you, Randy, as well? Okay. Okay, very good. We're all good. So then we just do have one. Marta Rostock has signed up to speak on the parking meters and why she's coming forward, just to make sure that everyone does know this is not on the agenda this evening, but we do have a special city council meeting scheduled for a week from today, August 26th, to go into great detail on these parking meters. But you're more than welcome to take 3 minutes if you like to speak on that. And then again, next Monday we will have a meeting just dedicated only for parking meters. And can we make sure we get the time? Are you able to get the timer going on the clock, or is it not working? Even if it just starts from 0, or can it start from 0 and go up? There we go. Okay, the time is yours.
Okay. Thank you. Dear Mayor and Caldwell City Council, during the meeting on August 5th, I stood here representing Continental Investors, Abracadabra Antiques, Genizio's Restaurant, Red Light Photography, Wells Fargo Bank, Windermere Real Estate, and Rostock Furniture, requesting the removal of parking meters on Blaine and Kimball, replacing them with the same public parking signs you still have on 9th and Cleveland. I handed you each a notebook, but with the limited time, I didn't go through it in any detail that evening. Every business owner or representative signed the cover sheet, feeling as though the strength and support of our entire block had some value. There were several photos of our empty streets where you placed your parking meters on half of our block, and pictures of the public parking signs like we used to have still on the other half of our block. I also submitted several pages of signatures from residents of Caldwell and visitors to our city. Those were public opinion polls that many business owners have had available and that many residents who support and love Caldwell had collected on their own and brought to us. Our store sells many household items, and we do our best to help families adjust to many transitions, like a new mattress or desk to help your teenager settle into their first dorm room, or a new lift chair for a beloved mother who is moving into an assisted living facility, for example. Families have counted on us for generations to help find just the right thing to provide comfort and make life better in many situations. Well, this summer, a lady wanted to help her mother get settled into a memory care facility. This family is from Caldwell and have shopped and supported many businesses here over the years. We were grateful they could shop locally again. Well, the daughter had such a struggle with the parking meter that she came to alert us and ask for help. We told her to please just pull around back to our own parking lot where there is a handicap spot and no meters. So they found the perfect chair, and while writing up the sale, they saw the petition on our counter and they both wanted to sign it. Then they asked if they could take some extra petitions with them. I didn't tell them they should limit their efforts to only visitors of the plaza. I thought we all mattered. So I submitted to you all of the pages we received so far from everyone as a representation of all kinds of people who live in or visit Caldwell. There were no addresses on these pages. They were meant as a public opinion poll, intended as something that should be of interest to you in some way. And I imagine if you had time to research any of the names, you certainly would find supporters of Caldwell from all over the map, including Melba, Oriana, Kuna, and Boise, for example. Right now is move-in week at the College of Idaho. We recently had the fair and the rodeo. People from everywhere have many reasons to come to Caldwell. We simply should not be creating additional difficulties for our businesses or the public, and you have. This was a simple public opinion poll with a clear statement on the title page I included. I have no interesting strategy. If anyone has any questions about what I have submitted, the right thing would have been to just ask me. Please add 3 more pages of signatures to your notebook. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you, Mrs. Bostock. I wanted to thank you for coming and standing here and speaking. I know it can be very intimidating and kind of scary, and I hope that you will be back here on the 26th to have a more in-depth conversation about the parking as well.
Absolutely. Thank
Okay.
you.
You're very welcome. So now we are on to our update report. Mr. Jenkins, the time is yours.
All right, Mayor, Council, good evening. My goal tonight is to provide an update on the amphitheater project. And I must say, this project is really an extension of our efforts to punctuate Caldwell as the tourism mecca of the valley, as we like to call it. Really just a vibrant, active gathering place for the Treasure Valley and the Western United States as a whole. Here's where we stand with the amphitheater project. So I've been collaborating with Lexor Companies on the feasibility of the proposed alternate site. I want to thank Ashley. I know Ashley's here from Public Works, and also Rob McDonald for their efforts in helping us with the feasibility efforts of that proposed location. We are exploring that site pretty diligently, but also looking at the Caldwell Event Center site. On July 31st, we had a meeting with the sub-area master plan folks, Logan Simpson, as well as some staff. Thank you, Robin and Morgan from P&Z, helping to facilitate that discussion. We are continuing to look at both paths, and as you are aware, we've had 5 stakeholder meetings with the groups that are involved in the Caldwell Event Center area to date. So there are some spatial considerations within the Caldwell Event Center area that we just wanted to take into account, especially given the size and scope of all the events and activities that take place year-round in that area. The alternate site will be exclusive to Lexor Companies, but it presents challenges such as floodplain considerations and also access concerns that are relevant to the area. That'll take some time to address, certainly, but Lexor plans to submit a formal request sometime in September to this governing body to pursue a specific location with that request. They'll also include a site plan, and they'll include some details that pertain to their proposed development agreement that they'll present to you all at that time. I am also tasked personally with working through the details of the deeds associated with both properties, which we've done so in conjunction with our legal team to really look through the language and understand better how we can develop those properties and recognize some of the encumbrances that are involved with each site. I've had discussions with the Greenbelt Civic League Association, which they were involved with the alternate site that was proposed, and they have a willingness to work with the city and this project to find an amenable solution for all parties involved. So that is what I have to share to date. I hope this information is helpful as we continue to work through the details of this proposed project. Again, this is going to be a very impactful project, which I'm very excited about, and I think it would be transformational for Caldwell to consider this future amphitheater project in conjunction with all of our other great activities. As was mentioned, we just celebrated the 100-year anniversary for the rodeo, started in 1924, and of course, the Canyon County Fair, I think it started in the late 1800s as I was doing my research. So we've had a lot of history here, as well as the College of Idaho, of course. You know, we're national champions for basketball recently and compete at a very high level with basketball and football and all other sports that take place there. So again, this is just an effort to extend our ability to be a tourism mecca here in the valley. So with that, I'll stop rambling and take any questions you might have.
Perfect, thank you so much. Counselor Allgood?
Oh, sorry, didn't mean to have my lap.
That's all right. Counselor Register?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to also say how appreciative I was and excited that members of this council came up with the alternative site and proposed that to kind of get the ball rolling so that we were making some advances to take into consideration the stakeholders you mentioned, which I'm guessing are the rodeo and the fair and the College of Idaho. I just want to make it clear to the public that the council did listen to them, and I believe it was Councilor Doty that actually went on a tour of the west side of Caldwell, made sure that that happened in the comprehensive plan that's coming up so that it could be zoned correctly in case that project was to move over there. And then I know I have also had a conversation, I believe some other councilors may have, about moving that site. So that was really an effort of the council to do that, so I just wanted to be upfront about that. But also, when you said you've had 5 meetings with stakeholders, are there any council members on that committee that have those meetings, or who's having the meetings?
Yes, affiliated with that stakeholder group are 2 council members, so Councilor Dittenberg and Councilor Allgood.
Okay.
And there are, yeah, definitely some historical references that are available if you need those as well.
Okay, no, I don't. I just wanted to make sure that there was a council representative on whatever the committee is that's meeting with whoever is
Sure.
going about that. So, thank you. I appreciate the update.
Yeah, and thank you, council, for your time. I know that there are conversations that have taken place offline, off hours, and it's very helpful to have your engagement at that level. I'm very appreciative of that effort that you guys have put forward for this project and for other considerations. And likewise, Mayor, I know you've had some conversations as well, and very much appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you so much. We appreciate the update. Okay, that moves us to our consent calendar. I do not believe we have any amendments on that this evening, so do we have a motion for approval of the consent calendar?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Doty?
move to approve the consent calendar as printed.
Good, do we have a second? Second. So we have a motion from Councilor Doty and a second from Councilor Register for approval of the consent calendar as printed. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, with that, then voting is open at this time. And all votes are cast, so voting is closed, and that motion passes unanimously, and the consent calendar is approved. That moves us into old business. And so we do have one item on old business, and that is an action item that was continued from our last city council meeting regarding a resolution to authorize the execution of a reimbursable agreement with Envision Construction in an amount not to exceed $400,000 as accommodated within the FY 2024 departmental budget. Scott, there you are, sorry. Mr. Swanson, our Director of Aviation, if you would come forward and make the presentation, and then we will allow for, as I mentioned, testimony following Scott's remarks. Thank you.
All right, Scott Swanson, City of Caldwell, Director of Aviation. So I am here to talk about the reimbursable agreement with Envision Construction not to exceed $400,000. And I think just for some more explanation on this reimbursement, the monies that would be allocated out of this are currently sitting within the street fund under MS4 for stormwater projects. They had a project that is not occurring this year, And then I have a project that has popped up this year, so any reimbursement that were to occur within this agreement will be solely dedicated to anything needed specifically for relocating and fixing the stormwater on the southwest side of the airport. And then that'll do a few things. That'll enable Envision Construction to come in and put 6 hangars in, put a parking lot. We'd have 6 hangars with street access. There would be a public restroom involved with this hangar set for use on that southwest side of the airport. And then getting one of the storm discharge areas currently on the airport off of discharge, no longer going into Indian Creek. And we would be able to save some funding there from Public Works with no longer having to do water testing in that area if everything works out as planned. And then what I've handed you here is I took, trying to essentially look at what is the value of a development on the airport. So I took what the Idaho Department of Transportation put out as a 2020 impact study as far as what the Caldwell Airport generates. And when they look at that, their area of influence for money generation for our airport is everything, the airport plus within a 30-minute drive of the airport. So you have those numbers of GDP of 25 million and economic impact of 56 million. And you can take those numbers and divide it down. We have 311 hangars and 543 based aircraft, and you can get a value to that. So that is there, but that is for within a 30-minute drive distance. So Caldwell, the city of Caldwell itself takes 11.01% of the economic impact, and that is the lower section on the first page. So you have a GDP of 2.5 million and an impact of 6.1 million, giving a hangar a value of 10,166 and an impact per hangar of $24,150. And if you go to the second page on this, what I did is broke this, what the impact looks like over a 10-year period. And so right now, I currently have a first lease payment of that $5,900 on that property for Envision Construction. And then if you look at what the property tax hangar values and your total net revenue, this would be the net revenue block back to the city over the next few years. With the street rate, you're looking at $8,100, and the property tax is $7,500 estimate over that first year when somebody's in the hangar, for a total over that 10-year period of just revenue to the city of $159,000. When you take GDP and then the impact as far as what it's doing on the economy in the area for this hangar set of 6 hangars over the next 10 years up until 2033, you're looking at a total value of economic GDP of $700,000 and an economic impact of $1.6 million for a total 10-year value of $2.5 million. So with an up to a $400,000 investment from the city at this time to fix only the stormwater system itself and get that moved to an area out of the airport property on the south side of Aviation Way, you're looking at a 10-year net gain of just over $2.1 million. And that is all I have.
Questions, Councilor Williams?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Scott, I got a couple of questions, but maybe more for clarity, and I might need some help from some of your friends in the chambers here, assuming they're your friends. The monies that we're talking about that are street department monies, those are enterprise funds. Is that correct?
So the street department has kind of 2 separate divisions with it. They have the street department and then they have the MS4 division within the street department. In that MS4 division, those funding comes from the enterprise funds directly.
Okay, and so I think it's important for everybody to know that we're very restricted on what we can do with enterprise funds. We can't build the tower with enterprise funds, right? We can't put it toward taxiways with enterprise funds. We're restricted in what we can do with enterprise funds, and this is one project that fits within what enterprise funds does. Mr. McDonald's here. I don't need you to come up, Rob. I just need a nod, really. You've obviously interacted on this, so this is something you're in agreement with, or maybe you'd like to speak, but I'm assuming you've collaborated on this, and so I want to be sure we've got buy-in, because when we have more heads thinking about this, we're getting the input and the wisdom that we need in order to get the right decisions made, and then I'll follow up now that I've drawn you into this with your friend Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Council, Councilman Williams. The Public Works, generally, we support this, and there's a couple reasons why. It is not our practice to assist private development, and that, I just want to be very clear on that. The only reason why we have even entertained this is simply because there is a direct benefit to this stormwater improvement that benefits the airport as a whole, and is one step closer to us getting out of our airport permit, stormwater permit, and being able to eliminate that entire permit we have with DEQ. This is simply one step. This doesn't eliminate everything at the airport, but it's a one step closer. And I want to be very clear, the ask that the airport is making is for not to exceed $400,000. We have not seen a design yet. I don't know what the cost of this stormwater system is going to be, except for an estimate that I have that's based off of maybe a very conceptual cost. And so it would be our intention in Public Works to, even if the threshold is $400,000, we still want to review the plans. We want to review the cost estimates and make sure that we're not putting more money out than what the storm system is worth. We have had many preliminary discussions, and so we feel like that this stormwater system is a benefit to the airport in general, and therefore to the city. I don't know if that answers your question.
It perfectly does. Thank you for coming up, Ms. McDonald, and helping with that. And then,
I'm gonna
Mr. Mayor, if I could,
Yeah, hold on one second.
I just don't want him to go anywhere.
He'll stay in the front row, I'm sure, so he won't go too far. So, yes, go
if I
ahead.
could, Scott, appreciate again the work you put into this and the effort you put into helping us understand what the impact for the city is. And as emotional as this can get for a lot of people, I'm reminded, and earlier was having a discussion with somebody that said, this isn't personal what we do here. This is all business. There's nothing personal about the decision that we're making here. This is a business decision that appears to be best for the city of Caldwell, and the airport belongs to the city of Caldwell. We could talk about all we want, whether the tenants like it or not, but this is a city airport that we are continuing to conduct in a way that best serves the city and best serves Public Works, best serves our problems with DEQ in the long run, and then produces a revenue that is going to do a lot better for us than if we didn't do this. It would be untenable and it wouldn't pencil out for anybody to develop this property. And so I appreciate the work you've put into it, and thank you for coming forward and explaining it to us.
Thank you, Councilor.
Councilor Allgood?
Yeah, Scott, when you first started talking, you talked about reimbursement. Who's reimbursing who?
So this would be the city of Caldwell would be reimbursing Envision Construction for the work that would be required to essentially bring up to date the stormwater system, the stormwater collection system, and moving that to an area on the south side of Aviation Way off airport property to enable development to be built in the current area where the stormwater pond sits.
Can I?
Yes, please.
So, is this something we would normally put out for RFP if we needed this work done?
So this property was put out for RFP in December and then awarded in January. However, at that time, I did not understand the intricacies of a stormwater system, nor knew what was going to be needed. The initial submission that won that RFP rebuilt the stormwater collection on site where it currently sits in 3 different ponds, and that Envision Construction was told by building department and engineering that that wasn't going to essentially facilitate what was needed for the development going in there, and the stormwater collection would have to go to the other side of Aviation Way for that development, because you're taking away so much ground that can soak up water and push it into that system, placing concrete so now that ground can only take up a portion of what it could before, and then moving it off somewhere else, and then plus sand and grease traps and other things that are needed in that area.
I'm just trying to understand the connection. I realize Envision wants to develop the ground once it's recovered. And I'm just trying to put the connection to how they also got the contract to build our stormwater drain.
So they got that through an RFP process that we voted on in January.
That's where I was going with
Okay.
that. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, Council Register?
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions. So the RFP we voted on in
Yes.
January? Okay. So this is, so I'm clear, they want to build something there, but they can't until the stormwater thing is addressed or whatever, and then there's projected revenue to the city because they're going to lease out hangars, or we're leasing out hangars, or?
Yeah, so they're going to build 6 hangars and then sell all or most of those hangars.
I don't have a ton of faith in projected revenues after the whole parking meter thing. So that, those projected revenues though are once they're sold, right?
Correct.
Okay, so that could be, I mean, who knows how long that might take, or do you have people in, is there anybody waiting
So
for
we-
space?
Yeah, currently we have a queue of about 37 individuals looking for hangar space mixed between rental and buy. It's really just going to depend on, obviously, the economics of what's going on at that time, money available, and then people's wallet size, I guess I could say.
But we do have
Yes.
a list, okay. And then my other question is kind of about the loan, and this is what I also wanted to ask Mr. McDonald about. So the project that the streets is not doing this year, what project was that? Where this money's coming from, or the 400,000, or?
Mr. Mayor, council person register.
Counselor.
Counselor register.
Councilman, I really
Sorry.
doesn't, it's so awkward when there's so many syllables.
Our MS4 fund is a fund that is only permitted to be used for stormwater. We earmark projects throughout the year. I'm not aware of a specific project that we didn't do, except I know that there are many projects that could be done that have to do with storm drain repair, catch basin repair, and that sort of thing. We do have the funding in the account at the end of the year. We didn't get to all the projects that we would like to do, and a lot of that is just manpower and being able to manage the projects and get them done. So the funding is there. And if that answers your question, I did have just a couple other things I wanted to mention briefly, but go ahead.
I guess, sort of building on that question, is this a loan to them? You're just giving the airport up to
No.
$400,000, but you're not paying it back, is that
Yeah,
right?
so we're not loaning it to the airport. It's being used for stormwater infrastructure, which is the appropriate use for that fund.
Okay. I guess the reason I'm asking more so is because I want to make sure that if there is something else that streets needs to do and it's going to happen next year, that we're not taking away money from whatever that project is to do this project, and then we're going to have to try to find the money next year to do that project. Because at first it sounded like we had the money earmarked for something and then you didn't do it that year, so what if it came up next year, you know what I mean, or whatever, so, but that's not what it is.
Sure. No, I don't think that's the case. Typically, the stormwater projects tend to be many small projects, and because it's an allocation from the enterprise funds, at the end of the year, whatever's remaining in that fund gets dispersed back to those allocation budgets that it came from.
Okay, so we're just not setting ourselves up for a problem next year of having to fund a project that
No,
we're not doing
and
this year.
in all reality, we're working toward getting the airport self-sufficient anyway from a stormwater standpoint, and so this project would be coming up in our project list anyhow to get this done.
Okay, and then you mentioned something about reviewing the cost estimates. What if it's over 400,000?
I sure hope that's not the case.
Me too.
In reviewing that, like I said, we don't have a complete set of plans yet of the storm drain system, and so once we have that, then we would look at that closely, and we would determine what we felt like was an appropriate cost. I assume that's going to be under $400,000, but until we have a set of plans to look at, we really don't know.
So is there a reason why we're approving this before that? Without having the actual number to make sure? Or,
I wouldn't be able to speak to that. I think the whole intention here is that the airport anticipates it's going to be under $400,000, and so they're trying to get a general approval so that the contractor can continue with the buildings.
is that what, okay, because what I'm trying to avoid, I guess, is that we say yes to this allocation, right? and then they get the plans, and then it comes back at $800,000, and then are we locked into this, and now we have to come up with the other 400? I'm looking at Raylene too. Or does it just end right there if it's not, or?
So this agreement with Envision Construction will cease at $400,000. Like, no more. If it goes up to that, it goes up to that. Kind of like what Rob said as well, I'm expecting it to be below that. I would not expect it to exceed that, but some things you just never know until you start getting shovels in the ground and seeing what's there and what's actually needed.
So can just so that I understand and the public understands why we're approving this before we have done any of, or have any of the plans to look at?
This would provide capital to the construction company to allocate to planning on that stormwater system and starting to get that stuff in place, because that is going to be the first set of this project, is going to be getting that stormwater system moved. At the end of the day, I'd say worst case scenario, how I would look at it is we allocate $400,000 in this reimbursable agreement to Envision Construction. They go through and do the entire stormwater rebuild and say they realize they're over budget on something and it doesn't work out. At the end of the day, I look at it as kind of a walk away on both sides, but then the city still got its stormwater rebuilt. Did the city pay for it? Yes, but the city didn't actually do the work, so we saved the money on time and man hours on that end of it, as far as just looking at it as a construction project. But I have no way to positively say exactly how much it's going to cost.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'd have to have the comparisons from the city to see if it's really a,
Yeah, and that's the entire plan with Public Works, Engineering, Building Department, and all that, is fine-tooth combing every expense that's going to go into this thing and only allocating funds to things that are stormwater-based and correcting what's currently there.
okay, and then do you think, Mr. McDonald brought this up, but do you think we're setting a precedence for supporting private development?
I'd say they're yes and no. I say yes on the end because we are allocating funds for a private developer to enable them to build on the airport after they do something else for the city that we're paying for. Does that enable or set a precedence? Yes. However, at the end of the day, because as Councilor Williams has stated, being an enterprise fund, you're only allowed to use these funds for a particular project. I have not, in my tenure here, have seen any other projects that have come through and asked for this specifically. When you talk about basing it directly on stormwater systems, I have no experience with that. I looked at it like, I saw it's going to be a lot of money. There's going to be a large benefit to the city. I'm going to come ask for money and see if it's there, and if it is, I'll ask council. But at the end of the day, in my position and my job, I'm going to support whatever council decides to do. And then if I have to find a different way to do this, I'll find a different way to do this.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Stoddick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Scott, the first question I've got, was this approved by the Airport Commission?
So this was mentioned briefly with the Airport Commission, not in an actual meeting.
So they didn't get a chance to vote on it?
No, there was no voting on this.
And why not? I mean, you know, the input that they would have regarding the pros and cons, why wouldn't we do that?
So in my view of this, Counselor, I think doing this or not doing this would be more up to council than the commission itself, on whether or not we want to allocate these funds.
You know, a lot of those folks are experts in a lot of this stuff, and, you know, to me, this is getting back to how we managed it before, where the Airport Commission wasn't involved in hardly anything, and I thought, you know, under your direction, that would change. And, you know, we need their input too, would be my criticism, that you haven't run them by, because I think they should have been. Relative to the cost, and keeping in mind what happened with the swimming pool, if they start work on this and they spend the $400,000, it's not completed, who's responsible for completing it then?
I think that would be something we need to look at possibly, but I would expect
The
the
answer
city.
would be the city,
Yeah,
right?
yes,
So we do have skin in the game, as they say, right?
correct.
Okay, just want you to keep that in mind too. Regarding Councilman Williams' comment about tenants, and it's up to the city what's best for the city, I want to remind him too that tenants pay taxes also, and, you know, if it wasn't for taxpayer money, we wouldn't be doing this either. So, I mean, they're responsible too. Has any materials been delivered on the property site regarding the stormwater project and the hangars being built?
There is one hangar set currently sitting on the property site, waiting for permit approval to start going in.
Okay, and if this wasn't approved, what would happen then?
I would say the developer would pick their building up and go home.
Okay, kind of getting the cart before the horse again, though?
A little bit, yes.
Lastly, again, I'm really disappointed that this wasn't run by the commission because we have some contractors there. I see Mr. Nearing's out there, and I think, isn't he still the president of the commission?
He is, yeah, he is the chairman
Could
of
I
the
have him
airport
come up
commission.
so I can ask him a question?
Absolutely.
Okay. Mr. Nearing?
So we'll actually, let's go ahead and finish with Scott, because I think Randy was going to testify.
That's the last
on
question I
that,
had.
so-
Okay.
Okay. Counselor Allgood.
Yeah, one more thing, because I want to make sure our project for stormwater and Envision there's clear separation. If we complete our stormwater project, we get the stormwater where we need, and that kind of situation, does Envision own the property already or have the lease rights to the property to put up those hangars, or is that open to anybody to put up hangars? How did they acquire the rights to put up hangars once the property is available?
So Envision has paid the first year already on the property, the entire property, for the lease for those hangars. That was executed a month ago. And that was something I did based out of awarding that RFP back in January and then running through conversations within city departments on getting this moving forward.
Okay, so they have already signed a contract to have
Yes.
that property? Okay, thank you.
Counselor Register.
The only thing that I kind of want to piggyback on what Councilor Stoddard was saying, I think the city does have sort of a pattern of putting the cart before the horse, right? So I think we need to all be mindful of that in the city, all the directors, everything, and kind of having that communication. And I think there has been a lot of complaints about communication. So I just want to encourage you too, that when stuff like this comes up to talking to your airport commission, whether you need their approval or not, it's almost like, I mean, sort of a
Courtesy?
a courtesy, a respect, whatever, because then some of then they have a chance to ask questions, right? So if you're having a meeting with them and they can ask questions and you can explain it and everybody's kind of on the same page,
Yeah.
then when you come here, you don't have the pushback. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's all about communication. So I would just really encourage you to include them, and maybe it doesn't have to be the decision-making, but some of the communication with
Yeah.
it.
Okay. Did you have another question for Director Swanson?
Doesn't have anything to do with this, but I had a call the other day from a pilot that uses our airport, and he was wondering why we don't send out CFRs anymore. Does that ring the bell?
A CFR?
Yeah. No?
No.
He said when Mr. Olds was there, they'd send.
Oh, yes, I talked to this individual today.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Apparently, historically, somebody was emailing him TFR reports for
Oh.
temporary flight restrictions.
Okay.
So I talked with him for about 20 minutes today and then showed him the website on skyvector.com, and you can overlay the TFR map to the area and see where they are, click on them, get all the information you need. So,
Okay.
yeah, I took care of that earlier this afternoon.
Good, appreciate that.
Yep.
Okay, that's all I had.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate it, Scott.
Yes.
Okay, so like I said, there was no sign-up sheet, but we will take testimony on this matter. We do ask that when you come forward that you do state your name for the record, and then you will be allotted 3 minutes, so you'll notice that up on the clock up here, so we just ask that you do respect that time for everyone else as well. So if you do wish to speak on this matter, you may make a note by coming forward. I know we have at least one here. If you could come forward and state your name for the record, and then you will have 3 minutes.
Justin Harrison. I am 3612 East Rolling Green in Nampa. I'm on your advisory board for Caldwell, and thank you for that appointment. And Mayor and Council, thank you for letting me speak today. Regarding the development near that beacon at the airport for these hangars, if we're going to spend this kind of money, I'd really like to get the area around there to actually drain. I ran a hangar there owned by the Reeds. Anytime it rains, my hangar floods. They have contacted city engineering on many occasions, according to them. I don't have any proof of that. And in their attempt to get that drainage taken care of. So there is one drain on the west end of that hangar, and there's nothing for the 200 yards the other direction. So it just piles up and goes between each hangar and works down. So if we're going to be doing this, it'd be nice to get the system to actually function properly. The buildings that Scott refers to, I think there's actually 2 hangars that are on the ground there now. There's 2 different colors. It's an R&M building on one section and a gray building, which is out of Utah typically. In all fairness, if there's other proposals that were there for the RFP proposals, request for proposals, they need to be seen again to have that advantage to say, oh, we can now make bigger hangars and a better progress on this, knowing that we can move these drainage systems off-site with city money. No one had that advantage or opportunity prior to this. So when it comes down to judging what's coming through or what in the ratings, I was 6 years on the State Advisory Board rating for waterways improvement funds. I just don't know, how do we see that? I'm on the advisory board. I've never seen how a project that comes in for proposal gets rated. No idea. So I'd like to be able to know what's going on with that stuff. Let me think if I can. We have, a bunch of advisors. 3 of those people own and lease property on the airport. I think they're biased. I have no problem with them trying to make their businesses more effective and make more money, but to build something on the airport using the airport lease rates to their advantage seems like it's more a biased thing than them doing it as the airport in a whole, because everyone pays the same lease rates from here on. There's differences when you're coming onto the road, if you got a fence or a parking lot and that kind of stuff, I get it. But for the most part, if someone had known that we could develop that clear into the road, anybody could have made that advantage. And it seems like that the individual kind of gets shut down. If someone like me wanted to build a hangar, our sweat equity is what makes it affordable. And we have the ability to do that with the stuff that we've done in our lives and our expertise, as you've regarded or talked about. And to not be able to do that and just have all these go into these big projects is really disheartening to see when an airport that was created for all the little guys is going away. So appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you so much. Any questions for Mr. Harrison? Councilor Stoddard, did you have a question for him?
No, I'm just waiting for Mr. Nearing, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Randy, let's bring you on up. If you could again, just state your name for the record, and then we'll time you up for 3 minutes as well.
I need more than 3 minutes. Mr. Mayor, Randy Neary, 507 Dishman Place, Caldwell, Idaho. I was going to come up and I was going to speak on many different hats. One is a Caldwell citizen about irrigation that I heard last meeting about 7 to 10 million. I'm not going to talk about that. I was going to talk about a hangar owner out there. That's already been said. Counselor Register really answers all the questions. Why are we approving this before the design's done is really the biggest question. I put in for this RFP. That's not a secret. I know it's been said that I'm disgruntled because I didn't get the RFP. That is the furthest thing from the truth. I also happen to serve this council as the chairperson of the advisory board, and we just heard that it wasn't brought to us. Whether it should, whether it shouldn't, that's above me, but we didn't get a chance to speak on it, so I'm not here on that behalf. But I am here on the behalf as a developer. I think it's one, my RFP wasn't chosen because I know as a developer that retention pond's going to take some work. Do I know to what extent at that point? Absolutely not even close. But I knew it was going to work, and I was told that my RFP was one of the best written. Obviously, I have success at this airport with RFPs. We're doing a 57,000 square foot development right now on the airport. I would love to use Scott's numbers. That makes my project about a $20 million payback to this city. If we're going to believe those numbers, great. I love it. you know? But based on this RFP, I knew that going in, that was gonna take some work. Does it need to go back to an RFP? I'm not asking for that. I will not put in if it does. But I do think it's a disadvantage to those of us that put in that know what we're looking at and say, this is something that needs to be addressed. What does this look like? I'm going to compensate for that, but on paper, then mine looks smaller, because it was considerably smaller. I also know this is 2 hangars. Does it affect both hangars? Do we take these numbers brought forth on both hangars, or is it just affecting one that's by the retention pond? That's some clarification I would like. But I really believe Councilor Register answers the most poignant question. Why are we approving this before a design's been done? And then to back Councilman Stoddard, who's on the hook if it doesn't? But I'm not here because I'm a disgruntled developer. I really am not. I got plenty of work. So anyway, that's it. I'll stand for questions.
Well, we know you got at least one. Councilor Stoddard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Mr. Nearing, with your expertise and what you know about hangars, does this really pencil out to you, the numbers that they've got down here?
You know, I'm going to say no. I know what I pay in taxes. I think Scott's numbers, I even told him, this is not going to be a surprise to him. I think his numbers are a little inflated. I think this is maybe $8,000 to $10,000 a year payback to the city. Private sector, I've talked to many of you. Private sector and public sector were never going to mesh on this pattern. If I allocate money for something, and then when that time comes to spend it and it doesn't make sense, we're not spending it. I'm not going to pretend I understand MS4 budgets, and I'm not going to. I don't know anything about that. I just know when I look at $400,000 to get maybe $10,000 to $12,000 at most a year back, makes no sense to me at all. I can talk that in my project that we did, we paid for everything. We paid for stormwater. I had to make it pencil out. That's where we moved forward. And even in that design and my agreement with the city had me do something. I had to go back and change it to the cost of about $5,000 just literally a month ago to get a final to the final. You don't hear me coming back for this $5,000. And I did it as per what the city wanted, and then I had to change it again because the city turnover has changed their mind. It's the cost of developing. Welcome to it. It's an expensive world. Paybacks can be great, and the liability is high too.
Yeah, well, the only comment I've got is I don't know near as much as you do, but it just didn't pencil out in my mind either. And I think if our management folks would have run this by you folks, the commission, we probably wouldn't be talking about this right now, is all I'm going to say.
You have 2 commissioners here that are in opposition to it. Councilman Williams brings up good points, and if it's a project, that's none of the stuff I know. I'm looking really at surface level. I don't know the depths of it, and I could be totally wrong. I serve on your behalf. If you guys say yes, let's do it, you'll never hear me gripe again about it. It'll be 100% support from Randy.
Yeah, and I appreciate your honesty relative to the RFP too, that you wouldn't be bidding on it again.
I will make the promise to this council that I'm not disgruntled. I know it's been said by some, but I'm not disgruntled. I will not put in for this RFP again. It does not make sense. It barely made sense on the surface, and some of what they're asking for, hey, good if they can make it work, good on them. I could not.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Councilor Register.
Just a quick question. When you put in your RFP, was this stormwater repair included in there, or?
I was hoping we didn't have to touch it or clean it up. Again, not knowing to what extent is required. I don't know that we're on Indian Creek. I don't know that they're trying to get off. I don't know any of that. It's kind of a sloppy stormwater treatment, old, probably filled in with sediment and whatnot. I figured we would have to go in and clean it up, and that's what I had planned, but not relocating, no.
So if you had been awarded the RFP and then had to relocate it, how would you have handled it?
Probably, if it was to the tune of $400,000, I probably would have walked away and just explained why we could not perform on that RFP. Just been honest.
Okay, all right. So that is
Yeah.
sort of a bigger cost than normally would have been something that a company would take on, I guess.
Correct.
And then, okay.
Could I?
Yeah.
So, like when we did our project, we spent X amount of dollars, and I figured I had X amount of square footage, in this case about 57,000 square foot to absorb that cost in. On this site, you have 8 to 12, somewhere in there, depending how big and how you configure it. So it's a numbers thing. I can only charge so much for a hangar. 12,000 square foot, if it's gonna cost you 400 grand, what's that break down to a square foot price, right? And remember, you've heard me say before, it's a yes or no question. I've touted that in front of you guys before, and that's what it would come down to, is it just does not make sense.
Okay. And then my other question for you as a developer, the study that has to be done of the stormwater, I guess, to see exactly what needs to be done, do you have any idea what that would cost?
I have no idea. I mean, just based on other studies I've had to do, you're gonna be probably in the 30 range, I would say 30,000.
Okay.
It won't be a cheap study, in my opinion. Mr.
Okay.
McDonald could speak more to that, but it would not be cheap.
Okay, thank you.
Anything to do with stormwater is not cheap.
Counselor
Thank you.
Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Neary, nice to see you tonight.
Hello.
You made my point for me. Anybody that would have gotten this RFP would have had to have walked away if the
100%.
city didn't say, we need to do this anyway. And so I think it's worth repeating that Public Works is here to tell us this is a project that needs to be done. And if Public Works engineers are telling us they expect this to come in under $400,000, those are the people we would go to begin with. Certainly, we always get into situations where we find out there's something we didn't know, but our experts are still telling us this needs to be done. It's being done with MS4 funds, which are enterprise funds, and that really is the city's business anyway. And so I appreciate you helping us understand that anybody that would have won this RFP probably would have walked away from it at this point. We're just negotiating with the individual who did win the RFP in order to make this tenable for the city and do something that needed to be done anyway, according to our engineers. So thank you for clarifying that for all of us.
I serve at your behalf.
Counselor Register, do you have a follow-up?
I actually have a follow-up question on all of this to Mr. McDonald. So I
Okay.
don't know however you want to structure
Come on
that.
up, Mr. McDonald.
Good.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy.
So my question is that, so that we all understand that if we want to build anything in this spot, this stormwater thing has to be taken care of.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Councilor Register, let me just give a little bit of context here. Public Works was not involved in the RFP. We didn't know anything about the project. And then when the project came in for review, they were building around a city municipal well. And for any well that you have to have a certain amount of separation around the well. They can't be within 50 feet, and that's a requirement through DEQ. So what that forced them to do is to lay out their site so that they were not within that 50-foot radius, and that forced them to push their parking lot down closer to Aviation Way. And then by doing that, their parking lot was conflicting with the existing stormwater pond. If there was not a conflict with their parking lot and the existing stormwater pond, they would have been permitted to just rehabilitate the pond that was already there. But because now their parking lot is conflicting with the stormwater pond, it forced them to look elsewhere for a pond. At the same time, the city Public Works has been looking at rehabilitating all of those ponds so that we don't have any future discharge to Indian Creek, which allows us to get off our DEQ permit. And so when they came in and we saw this conflict, staff worked with the developer and with Scott, and we said, look, this is the option to get out of where the pond is currently and put it in a different location. And at the end of the day, it's actually achieving a goal that we already had to relocate that pond, and something that we would be planning on doing sometime in the future anyway. And so that's kind of how the project evolved. As to, like I've mentioned before, as to the cost of the project, I don't know what the cost is going to be. I haven't seen plans yet for the stormwater. And so I feel like staff, we have to wait till we see some of that before we can say, okay, we are comfortable with this amount, we're comfortable with this cost estimate. Right now, I think 400,000 is high, and I would hope that we're not anywhere close to that. But that's what they're asking for, so they can keep the project going. At the end of the day, staff, Ms. Newbury and myself, we would be looking at their cost estimates and their design to make sure that none of the MS4 funding is going to anything that's not stormwater related, that does not directly benefit the city.
So I'm asking you this question because I trust your judgment, but what I want to know, like, there's nothing could be built there unless this stormwater thing is taken care of, right? Like, let's just say it wasn't a hangar, something else. This has to be
So,
rerouted.
yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councilor Register, nothing can be built where the stormwater pond currently exists.
Okay.
You know, a developer could come in and say, instead of doing 6 hangars, we're going to do 3.
Okay.
And then we're not going to conflict with the stormwater pond. But, you know, in economies of scale, building more sometimes is a better bang for your buck. And so maybe that doesn't pencil. So the site could be constricted down, they could do a smaller site and not impact the stormwater pond where it's at now.
But if they are going to build there, they have to do this, and then it's a benefit to you because you come off your permit, basically, right?
Yeah, so if they build there, and I just want to be clear, I don't look at this as the city is helping a developer. Really, the city's helping itself get a stormwater pond built in a different location that ultimately meets a city goal, right? So if they build as they have proposed, the pond has to move, and that new pond, because it benefits the city, can be funded through MS4.
Okay, perfect. I have one more question for Mr. Swanson.
Yes, Scott, you can come forward.
Thank you.
Scott Swanson again.
Okay, one question for you. I do think the city sort of has a history of putting the cart before the horse and just pulling the trigger before we have all the information, like just absolute. So what I'm wondering from you, is it possible to get an idea of what it will cost to do the study or the plans or whatever it is that they need to do to come up with that final cost that Mr. McDonald is talking about, and that maybe we can allocate the money for that since it needs to be done either way without tying up all of that money or committing all that money to this project before we even know?
Yes, I think on that, Counselor, I could have Envision come up and speak on that question because they would have a much better idea on what those numbers would look like than I would.
Well, if they need the money, let's say it's a $30,000 study, just as a number. If they need the money to be able to do that, I'm more comfortable approving that amount and then seeing exactly what the number is so that Mr. McDonald can look it over and then we know exactly what we're spending. And then commit the money, then I am committing up to $400,000 and just hope that it's enough and that we don't come to some threshold and then the city has to make it up and, once it's halfway done or whatever. Like, I would rather do this in smaller steps. I'm not against it, but I would just rather have the study done first, and I would be more comfortable paying for the study first and then seeing where we are at number-wise.
Yeah, okay, so that would just be an amendment on an agreement that would state, the city will fund your stormwater study to figure out the work that needs to be done, and then the allocation from that would not exceed $370,000 directly toward MS4 funding.
Yeah, or, I just don't want to tie up the funds. Does that make sense? So I don't want to commit up to $400,000 to a project that we don't know how much it's going to cost. So I think it would be the more responsible thing to do is to have them tell us how much the study is going to be. We'll pay them for the study, then they can come back and give us the quote on what it's going to cost to complete the project. And then by that time, Mr. McDonald can look it over, and then you could get an approval from the city to actually do that project. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Do you have anything else, another question for?
No.
No. Councilor Static, did you have any?
One.
Yes, Councilor Doty.
Just one, Mr. Mayor. Can MS4 money be used for the project before we commit to paying for a study?
That'd probably be a question for Rob or Ashley. Or Raylyn.
Any of them. I don't want to commit to paying for a study if that money can't be used.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, it's my understanding that the study is actually the design plan set for the pond itself. And so, yes, that could be used, could be funded by the MS4.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, did you have anything else right now? So hold on one second, Stan. I know Corey James had come up and indicated he wanted to speak, and then Stan will get to you after that. And so if you could give your name for the record, that would be great. And then you will have 3 minutes as well, and then stand for questions.
Mayor, council members, first name is Corey, last name is James with Envision Construction.
Oh, can you turn the microphone on? Push the button so it goes green. There we go, right there.
Mayor, council members, Corey James with Envision Construction. There's a lot of things that were said here this evening that don't give you the full picture. The study's already in progress. We've met with Haley and Ashley this last week, trying to come up with a game plan on where to put that pond. We have an entire design for that section of the airport that's been approved. Conditional approval for the hangars has been approved and presented to us. We can go in, we can pay for the permits, we can start construction, given that we, relocate the stormwater. The other thing that's worth noting, the stormwater being in the proximity it is with the well, its current DEQ regulations state it's got to be outside 100 feet from the well. Currently, it's less than 40 feet, the closest edge of the pond. It's dumping into Indian Creek, and we're just looking to improve that. The $400,000 not to exceed was written specifically that way as a cost sharing, specifically so it would give us the opportunity to come in and make those improvements. We don't expect them to exceed $400,000. Should we get that design back and they far exceed, meaning outside of our margins, then, we could go back to Scott and say, hey, Scott, this site's not, not buildable, given the current, money allotted. If it's over the $400,000 and it's still within our margins, we are willing to pay for the difference. In fact, it was initially presented as a cost share project. So Envision would be taking on some of the costs associated.
Very good. Okay, questions, Councilor Register?
So are you guys paying for the design then?
We already have, yep. It's been paid for.
How long until it's completed, do you know?
So we just had the meeting last, I don't remember, Wednesday. I think it was Wednesday, with Ashley, Haley, Scott, Steve Pendleton, and my engineer. We anticipate it being completed by hopefully the end of this week, ready for submittal. Whether they approve it or not, we don't know, but we came up with a new site that is less invasive than previously thought, that's closer to, so.
So at the end of this week, or the next couple of weeks, I guess, you'll have this design done and then you'll know what it's going to cost to do the project, right?
We can start putting together numbers. As with every project, there's a certain amount of time that it takes to, have suppliers supply material estimates, labor estimates,
Right.
all of this to add to the current design.
So if you're already paying for the design and the plans, do you need this money right now, or can it wait until you get the numbers so that we can see if we're going to have enough money?
Unfortunately, I wish this was earlier on in the year. It does look like this money will go away sometime in September. If it's not allotted, if it's not used up, if it's not, granted for this project, it looks like it will not be available to us next year.
What is that cutoff?
So the fiscal year ends September 30th, so we would want a contract established before then.
Okay, so since you already have this going and you have about a week left, you said, or something like that, then couldn't this come back at the September 4th meeting with an actual number then?
So we're also constrained by weather. We've got winter, coming in. It's going to push the development. We're already, this was approved back in January. We planned and estimated on starting construction May or June.
But you're not going to start construction until the design plan is in, right?
We've been given basically a conditional approval, so we can start construction at any point in time on the hangars and on the initial.
But we don't know how much the the repair is going to cost. So like, when would you start on that? Not until you know how much it's going to cost.
It's under that condition, we're required, if we start construction, we're required to fulfill it all the way through. That's why we're here tonight, to hopefully get approval for this so we can move forward in that fashion and get started. We want to get started, we want to get it done, and move on to other future projects. There's lots of other projects, down the road, here in Caldwell at the airport, that we're already working on,
I guess I need some clarification, because Mr. Swanson told us that part of the reason we were approving this tonight was because you needed the money to move forward with the design. But you're saying you've already done the design or whatever it is.
This
and
is
that-
for construction.
Right, okay, and then it's going to be done within a week, and then after that, you're going to know how much it's going to cost to do that repair?
It's probably an additional 2 to 3 weeks for estimates to come back, send them out, get material lists, and even then, engineering, everybody has to approve it. It's got to go through an entire, approval process.
Right, so you can't start on anything anyway until that's all done, so weather aside, you have to wait for all those approvals?
No, we're
You can do
conditionally
it.
approved, so whether it's got to get done, we're conditionally approved to move forward with the majority of the development. This is, again, going towards moving the stormwater around these hangars and getting them moved to that off-site storage
Okay,
pond.
so if it's more than the $400,000 number, then you're willing to take the rest of the cost?
Yes, as long as that estimate comes in and it's within our margins, we're
Which are-
prepared to, pay the additional amount to get that cost
What's
covered.
your margin?
I can't really share it. It goes into lots of numbers, price per square foot that the hangars, get built for, price per square foot that they sell for. If there's not,
Yeah, so has nothing to do with you at all, and please don't take it this way.
Yeah.
I am confused why we're getting information from the director saying that you need the money to do the design, but you don't. And then it sounds like you're gonna have these numbers within a week, so I don't know why we can't look at this when we have all the numbers at the first meeting in September if you're already conditionally approved anyway.
I'm not quite sure. I don't know. It did seem like there was a lot of maybe misinformation or information
Yeah.
that wasn't. I'm probably the most informed person
Yeah.
here with all the emails and back and forth with everything. We felt Scott was going to be the best person to present this, given that, we've gone to the mayor, we've gone to engineering, we've gone to Public Works, we've gone to every single, the Treasury, we've gone to everybody involved in this to get approval, to make sure that this would work, to make sure that, all of these steps and processes happened, that we, had
Right.
backing by all of these people. So-
Well, I just think that that the council, regardless of how we feel about the project, even if we're all on board with it, that we have a responsibility to do it correctly.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that we
absolutely.
have, in a lot of ways, done a lot of projects not correctly, and so
Yeah.
I'm gonna kind of stand my ground on this one.
Yeah.
That we do it in the steps that we need to do. So it sounds like if you can get that back within a week and at least get the correct numbers, that the delay is not gonna be that much, because we have another council meeting in 2 weeks. So we can give you an approval then if we have the numbers, and you can continue to do whatever you're approved to do.
Can I ask, what's the information that would be needed in order to, I guess move forward with the vote on this specifically?
Well, for me, I want to know what the cost is. What concerned me about some of the things that I've learned since I've been on council is approving things, again, that's the cart before the horse, without a plan, without knowing all the ins and outs. And so what happens is we get these packets and we get this information, and then we have like 4 days to study it, and then we have to make a decision in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And when you're dealing with taxpayer money, we need to be responsible for that.
Yeah.
So for me, one of the things that I've learned as a counselor, and something that I'm gonna sort of stick with, is making sure that we have a plan before us that makes sense.
Right.
So it really has nothing to do with you or your project. This is about the manner in which it's I don't know how else to say it besides a plan. It's the
Yeah.
lack of plan. So if what we're being told here is that basically the city needs to come up with some money to assist with this repair of the stormwater, right? But we don't know how much it's going to cost because we don't have the design done. So we were told that you needed the money to do the design, but you're already doing the design. So that concerns me already, okay? Why the information coming to us is not correct. After that, after you get the design, if I'm hearing this correctly, then you will be able to put together or get some sort of better cost estimate. I understand, I'm a small business owner myself, so I understand that you have to get estimates for material and what labor or whatever it is, but you will have a better idea of what it's going to cost, right? Because like Councilor Stoddard said, that if it goes over that 400,000, that truly, if you decide at that point that you're not going to do the project anymore, it does fall back on the taxpayer, which is where this council has to be the checks and balances. So what I'm asking is if you're going to have this study done in a week and then we can see the numbers or an approximate number or that we know it's going to be under 400,000, then you can bring that back at the September 4th council meeting and get the approval that you need. Maybe not for an exact number, but at that time it may be more comfortable to approve up to a number knowing that it's going to be underneath that. Does that make sense?
Yes, very, very briefly. 97% of this is engineered and approved. We're down to the last, where is this water going to go? Everything else, the collection, the transport, the removal of the ponds, the sand and grease traps, again, 97% of this is already approved, done, passed. It's literally a collection pond. Is what's holding this up. So as far as cost is concerned, we've already done our geotech. We understand the soils in the area, and we've already come up with a preliminary plan that everybody is in agreement upon, waiting for the plan. So as far as cost estimate, yes, it will provide us a little bit better sample into being able to construct that pond and the piping to get over there. But most of the costs are already figured out. We've already got our catch basins. We've already got, most of our pipe. We're talking about one transfer pipe from our sand and grease trap over to a pond.
Well, I can tell you that I'm not necessarily against the project.
Yeah.
But I am going to just kind of dig my feet in on making sure that we do this correctly. And the rest of the council might not agree with me, but that's just kind of where I stand with it. If you want to bring it back in a couple of weeks so we know it's going to be under that amount or we know where we need to be, great. If you don't, then where we stand tonight is where I stand.
Yeah, and I think that was the point of not to exceed 400,000 was just so if the cost, if you guys approved it and the cost was over, that we would have the opportunity to still move forward under our own basis without having to come back to the city and ask for any more money. And if it doesn't pencil, then it allows us to.
That's what we're talking about, like coming back and asking us for more money. That's what I want to be sure about.
We will not do that. If it doesn't pencil, we'll stop the project, pull our building, and walk away.
Thank you.
Councilor Dittenber.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. First of all, I want to thank city staff. You guys are truly the experts. And I don't want any of the discussion tonight to in any way mean that you're not the experts, because you are. And for the rest of the council, I think we don't have to have all the information. We have to have enough information to know that we're moving in the right direction. This needs to be done. Separating ourselves from the MPDES requirements is a huge undertaking and a remarkable achievement for the city, and something we ought to move on regardless of whether or not Envision's in the picture or not. I think this is a worthwhile project, and having said that, I make a motion that we consider a resolution authorizing the execution of a reimbursement agreement with Envision Construction for the amount not to exceed $400,000.
Second.
Very good. So do you have a motion and a second for approval of that? So before we do move forward on that, I know that we did have one other individual that did want to speak. So we'll let Stan come forward, take a few minutes on that, and then we'll move forward with that motion at that time. So, but we do want to make sure we do allow Stan the opportunity to say that. So,
Stan Seward.
could you mind push the button so it turns green? There you go.
Oh, great. Stan Seward, 4003 Preston Avenue, Caldwell. I'm going to wear my taxpayer hat on this and just basically say, okay, sounds like we're looking at 6 hangars total, or without changes, 3. So that's, just doing the math, that's like $130,000 cost for each of those extra 3 hangars. Now, perhaps fortunately, Corey was very informative to listen to, and he basically revealed that the stormwater system should be 100 feet away from the well. That's new information to me. And that tells me that there are changes that need to happen whether or not we have hangars there. It does raise the question of, when were we going to get to that? Or were we going to get to that? And there's also the fact that we have a bunch of porta potties out there when we should have flush toilets, because it's not a temporary use out there. It is a regular, it's not an event that we're holding out there. But back to the money side of things, I do have reservations about it, just on the cost side. When Tailwinds looked at doing like 25 T-hangars, we were looking at maybe $25,000 in infrastructure per hangar, okay? And that's a lot less money than, it just doesn't seem like the payoff is there. Maybe we should be over on the other side of the street where that 400,000 would spread out over a lot more hangars. And just the last comment would be that, yes, communication is key. I shouldn't have to be at a council meeting to understand the necessity of fixing the stormwater and why these hangars are going in. That, I know members on the advisory board, and if this had gone through the advisory board and it was well thought out and well planned, I'd be thumbs up and we wouldn't be here talking about it. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Stan, appreciate that. Yes?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Newberry, I'm sorry.
Ashley?
Can I invite you up? I'm sorry to do this, but there's a lot of interaction going there, and I want more of your input, because I see you nodding your head, and what I want to do right now is take the airport completely out of this, take hangars completely out of this, take Envision completely out of this, and go back to Public Works, and the fact that even if this project doesn't go forward, this has to be moved. So could you enlighten us a little more in your agreement on what was being said, help us understand this, and the fact that time is of the essence?
Very good. Mr. Mayor, Councilor Williams, I would say yes, this is a project that would be on our CIP in the future. Right now, we have a feasibility study that is not completed that would outline the stormwater infrastructure improvements that need to happen in order to get us off of our NPDES permit. And this is a location where there would be improvements required at some point in the future. I would also comment, as Mr. McDonald mentioned, that this site did have constraints of the municipal well, and the separation between the stormwater and the municipal well was not appropriate for new development. And so there were requirements that they had to contend with as a part of this.
Thank you. And I think it goes without saying that, again, regardless of whether there's no hangars there, or 2 hangars there, or 4 hangars there, we're not trying to factor in the cost for a developer or for the hangars right now. My point is, this needs to be done, right?
That's correct.
And so since we have these funds available to us, and we have a small window here to approve this, and since the motion has been made and seconded, I think it bears weight that this is a Public Works and City of Caldwell benefit that needs to be done regardless of whether or not the airport or hangars or developer involved. So thank you for your help in clarifying that.
Thank you. So as mentioned, we do have a motion that was made by Councilor Dittenberg. Do we have one more? Okay, yeah, if you could come forward and just keep it brief. I said it is a little unorthodox after a motion, but we do want to make sure that you are heard, so.
Turn your mic on.
Oh, yes, can you turn the mic on, please?
Sorry.
There we go.
Gina Bosco, 4003 Preston Avenue. I think my question is related to what you're saying, Jeff, Councilor Williams, is why doesn't it just get handled by the city independent of the contractor or the developer? Because this area has needed to be worked on for a long time, right? The money's been there waiting for quite some time, it sounds like. I mean, why not just separate it out from the developer project and all this goes away? I mean, this conflict goes away. I'm curious to know what the thought is on that, or maybe Rob has that answer. I don't know.
I might not have the best answer, Mr. Mayor, but I think sometimes projects are handled simply because of the nature of what brings them forward to us. And in this case, it seems like there's some benefit to the city in that there may be some costs that are already being covered that we don't have to pay for now. And because of the timing, like so many other projects that come before us, as Mr. McDonald testified, there are other projects we didn't get to, but things arise within the business of the city that bring it forward to us, and so this is why we're handling this one at this time.
Well, as long as I've been on the airport, as long as I've been on the airport, the issue of the stormwater has been a discussion. Like, that has to do with the wash rack and trouble with the EPA. I mean, this isn't a new problem. And so why is it now? And I hear, this is a rhetorical question. This is what's going on in my head, is why are we dealing with this now tied to a developer's project when this could have potentially been resolved and it wouldn't even be on the table for discussion tonight?
Okay, thank you so much. Do appreciate that. So we're going to go ahead and move forward with that motion that was made. So there was a motion by Councilor Dittenberg with a second from Councilor Williams for approval of this request. So that would open it up to council for your discussion in regards to that motion.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Register.
So I didn't know a whole lot about this project until we came here today and got the information that we did from everybody, and I appreciate that. I hope that city staff knows that our questions, even if it was alluded that we were in somehow disparaging you, that we were not. I think that we are allowed to have questions and should ask those questions. The thing that stands out to me about this is, once again, we are rushed and forced into a vote. So my vote tonight has nothing to do with the project or where I stand on that, or if I like it or don't like it. I'm simply going to vote no against the process. It's not about the project, it's about the process. And until the city and we get this together where we have all the information before you come to council with a vote, that's just how it's going to sort of stand for me, because I don't think that when you are stewards of taxpayer money, that you should be making decisions on the fly after you've just learned all these different things. And really, there's not an emergency there. As Ms. Bosco pointed out, it sounds like it's been there for a long time. So having this money approved before the end of September is something that we can absolutely do at the next meeting after this study is completed and we have the actual numbers. But again, I'm tired of being forced into votes when we don't have any completed information. And this idea that we just, quote, need enough and we don't need it all is just, I can't understand that when you're spending taxpayer money. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But again, whether I like the project or not, which I'm actually not opposed to, but being forced into this is going to require me to vote no, since we have a meeting in 2 weeks, and in 2 weeks we could have all the numbers that we need to make a really informed decision. 2 weeks is not a big ask, and we are historically rushed, and when we are rushed, we often lose, just as noted with being rushed into other projects where we're now at a revenue loss. So I would like to have more information about it over the next 2 weeks, revisit it, bring back the numbers, have Public Works look at it, make sure it all makes sense, and then that's how you are supposed to do business in a city, and that's the responsible way to vote, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Councilor
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to comment, the biggest problem I have with this is that, again, indirect approval from what Corey said was given to a contractor without council approval. It's not his fault. It's not the fault of our folks there at the city, the public director. It's, again, it's a process, and it's just totally wrong. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the motion? Okay, very good. So again, motion is for approval of, and this is under old business action item number 1 for considering resolution authorizing the execution of a reimbursable agreement with Envision Construction in the amount not to exceed $400,000 as accommodated within the FY 2024 departmental budget. So that is what is before the council. So with that, the voting is open at this time. And all votes are cast, the voting is closed, and that motion fails with 4 in opposition and 2 in favor. Just so for those that are at home that perhaps cannot see that, Councillor Doty, Councillor Stoddart, Councillor Register, and Councillor Allgood voted against the motion, with Councillor Williams and Councillor Dittenberg voting in favor. So that motion does fail. What I would ask though is, the motion fails, not the project itself, so I believe if council is amenable, if you want to have this continued, to come back for their discussion at that time. Is that?
I would like to see the numbers that you get from the study and have a better idea of what the cost is going to be at the meeting in 2 weeks from now so that we can get this done before the end of September.
Do you want to make a motion to continue it to the next city council meeting, or?
Well, it failed, so do we have to come up with
The
a new?
motion to approve failed, so I don't think that itself failed, so I believe it could be continued. Is that correct, Mark, or?
Yeah, Mayor, it does not need to be continued. You could just instruct staff to bring it back
Okay.
with the additional information, and we can put it on the agenda for the 4th.
Perfect, so we can do that, so, okay. Very good, so that does, again, fill it at this time, but again, we'll work with staff to bring that forward with some additional information at the next city council meeting for your review and decision at that time. That moves us into our new business, action item number 1, consider resolution authorizing the use of contingency funds for payment of the car park invoices in the amount of $63,000.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I am going to ask that this be continued also until a date certain of September 4th. I'd like to look into a few things.
Okay, very good. Is that going to put us into any issues at all on that? Okay, very good. So that is a motion to continue action item number 1 under new business to the next city council meeting on September 4th.
Second.
Very good. So that's a motion from Councilor Register with a second from Councilor Doty. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. That'll be brought up at the next city council meeting. So that moves us into action item number 2 under new business for the purpose of receiving public comment to amend the Community Development Block Grant Program Year 2023 Annual Action Plan. Robin, it's all you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you tonight is just for public hearing for comments on an amendment to the 2023 Program Year Action Plan for CDBG. This action plan amendment was needed due to the Arthur Street suspension of that project. So what this action plan does is removes that language from the action plan and then reallocates it towards other public infrastructure projects, which has been left very generic in the action plan so that we have some flexibility when we go back to reallocate those funds. So basically, we've got a total of $694,120.14 that we're asking for in the action plan to be reallocated. $106,900 of that was the total amount of funds that had to be repaid to the federal government that will eventually come back to us again to be reallocated to a new project. So basically, this is just a formality for that amendment, and this is just to take public comment. And I'll stand for any questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Any questions for Robin right now?
No, sorry.
Okay. Councilor Allgood, did you have a question?
Nope.
This moment. So it is a public hearing item. I'm guessing there's a sign-up sheet in the back there. Is that correct?
That's what I gave you.
Oh, is that what you already gave me? Oh, right there. That is what sorry. After that last one went a little long, so I forgot that I got those already. So there is a sign-up sheet, and there's nobody signed up in support, in opposition, or in neutral. So nobody here to speak on this matter. So are there questions for Robin or any motions in regards to this item?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Register.
let me get the, oh wait. I have to read this thing. Mr. Mayor, I move that we consider, is it the top?
Yes. Oh, yes, so stand for a
Oh.
motion to close the public testimony portion of this hearing. And a second?
Second.
Very good. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously. Apologize on that. So now, yes, moves us into that. So go ahead, Councilor Register.
Is it on this, or do we have any, like, what is the motion? Is it on here, or?
So would it be the next one?
Or was-
Oh, so is there a motion? There's not.
Mayor and council, there's no motion to be made. This item is just for public comments.
Okay.
That public comment period will remain open till September 13th.
Okay, so
Thank
not
you.
an action item this evening? Okay. Very good. Okay, very good. Then that moves us into number 3 for Bill number 65, ordinance number 3626, amending Chapter 2, Article 17, Section 217-4, Sub 3, pertaining to the meeting dates of the Caldwell Historic Preservation Commission. Go for it.
Mayor and council, this is simply to amend some of the language in the current city code. The current language doesn't allow us to cancel a meeting if there's no business without a vote of the commission, which is kind of silly. If we're not going to have a meeting, why would we be calling them in to vote? So it just allows us that if we don't have any certificate of appropriatenesses that have come before us, or we don't have any business, that we can just send out a cancellation of that meeting.
Very good. Any
Understand the
questions
question?
for Robin? Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Any discussion or any motions on this item?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Register.
I move that we consider Bill number 65, ordinance 3626, amending Chapter 2, Article 17, Section 217-4, pertaining to the meeting dates of the Caldwell Historic Preservation Commission, with a request to move for its passage.
And a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Councilor Register and a second from Councilor Stadek for passage of Bill 65, ordinance number 3626. Any discussion on that motion? With that, the voting is open at this time. And all votes are cast. The voting is closed, and that passes unanimously. Now moves us on to new business action item number 4, Bill number 66, ordinance 3627, pertaining to the commission appointments and terms of the Caldwell Design Review Commission, with a request to move for its passage. Robin.
Mayor and council, this is for the Design Review Commission. As you're probably all aware, we have been trying to fill vacancies on our Design Review Commission for over 2 years. Have not had an active commission to date because of that. So what we'd like to do, what we're proposing in this amendment, is to allow anyone that lives or works within the city of Caldwell or within the impact area, as long as they have certain experience, like architecture, development, building design, that they could sit on this commission, just so that we can get this up and running to help do our design review stuff. And I'll stand for any questions.
Very good. Any questions? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. With that, are there any motions for the passage of this bill and ordinance?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Doty?
I'll make a motion that we accept Bill number 66, ordinance number 3627, amending Chapter 2, Article 37, Section 23702, Sub 1, or Paragraph 1, I'm not sure which it is, pertaining to the commission appointments in terms of the Caldwell Design Review Commission.
And it's a motion from Councilor Doty and a second from Councilor Williams for passage of this bill and ordinance. Any discussion? Okay, with that, voting is open. And all votes are cast, so voting is closed, and that motion passes unanimously. That moves us into action item number 5, the finance report.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Allgood.
I move that accounts payable in the amount of $3,006,324.88, represented by check numbers 179933 through 180250, and payroll for the amount of $714,867.17, represented by check numbers 39545 through 3956564, and direct deposits be accepted, payments approved, and vouchers filed in the office of the city clerk.
Good. We have a second?
Second.
So we have a motion from Councilor Allgood and a second from Councilor Register for acceptance of the finance report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes. Moves us into council comments. Councilor Doty.
Mr. Mayor, I just have a couple of issues with, once again, the key fob. So we've had at least 3 meetings on it. I think I met with you last week about another fob issue where council can't get into business areas of City Hall. So once again, I think you told me last week you were going to fix it. It doesn't work. So I'm requesting that we write an ordinance that just says City Council gets approval, the same approval as the mayor, for all city buildings within the city of Caldwell. I think that'll solve the problem. It's already monitored by FOB. I know that it's checked often, so I don't think that would be that big of an issue. Also, the parking lot I talked to you about, it was over on 21st Street. Looks like 4-H was using our city parking lot to collect funds. I did find out that from Juan that it's been done for years, and so, which is great. I just don't know if we want to put any bids, or so to speak, I don't know what the right word is there, to make sure that everybody's getting a collective effort, especially our youth, or how we're going to decide that, or just keep it 4-H, but just so that all council is aware that that has occurred for years, that 4-H has had it for years. And I think they're a noble institution for our youth, but you never know which way council wants to go, so I'm just making them informed. So,
Very good, thank you. Councilor Stoddard?
Nothing.
Councilor Register? Councilor Williams?
I didn't have anything, just a question though. If a counselor suggests that, what's next steps and how do we move forward with requesting that an ordinance be considered? Is that something that just, it's a comment and it dies, or is that something that moves forward?
I don't mind commenting on it. It looks like the mayor might, though.
So it probably would be something that would come forward, and Mark can correct me on this, probably would be like an informational item to come forward for discussion at council, and then, you could do a workshop, but also you could just put it on there to have a discussion item, and then seeing where council is at, and then bring something forward with the direction of council if they wish to have that as an ordinance. Does that sound more or less? Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, Councilor Allgood.
Nothing tonight other than regarding Councilor Doty and 4-H. I'm wondering if that's a fair operation, not a city operation, because 4-H usually runs under the county fair.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, like I said, it sounds like it's been going on for years. It is on
Yeah.
city property, the new
That's what
parking
I'm
lot,
sorry.
so.
It's on city property, but it is 4-H, so I don't know who it falls under. Thank you.
Councilor Dittenber? Nothing, very good. So just a few things real quick, just a reminder, everyone, a special city council meeting August 26th regarding parking, so that'll be a week from tonight. And then also, just so council is aware, I've been discussing this with Robin, as you're aware, it was just discussed tonight with design review, that there are design review requirements within the downtown. We are currently facing an issue with a building in the downtown area, the US Bank building. If you have not noticed, they painted the building, the entire building, which is not allowed by code. The Planning and Zoning Department did reach out to them in regards to that, to notify them when they began, because they kind of started it and then they stopped and then came back and finished. So we did reach out to them and let them know that this is not compliant. They went ahead and finished the building. So a few things we were looking at that, how do we proceed in that regards, but I think it also highlights the difficulty. I know that council oftentimes comes forward with, concerns of other buildings in the downtown, that it just highlights again the difficulty to enforce those, that even when we do notify them, our staff does, many times they just move forward and do what they want, and then kind of on us, do we come in and play the bad guy until you know you cannot do that, you're gonna have to pay this much money to power wash it off because it doesn't comply with the downtown ordinance, that regard. So it's something that you most likely will hear about, so I just want to make sure you're aware of that. And so we are going to move forward and notify the branch, notify headquarters as well of what's kind of happened, and just kind of, I guess, see what their response is in that regards, but just want to make sure you are aware of that. And our staff is very diligent in moving forward and letting the people know when they do see those things about the issues that they're facing, or that they're, breaking certain codes and things of that nature. But again, it just highlights the difficulty of enforcing that, and even when they do know, a lot of times they'll move forward and basically try to call our bluff, so.
Can I have a question
Yeah,
about that? Does the design review committee also, does that include like the meters that they they fit in with the historical accuracy of the downtown?
That's a good question on that. I know that, and I don't have the code in front of me, so any, obviously with the building, things of that nature, but on that, Robin, do you have any comments on that or thoughts?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question one more time?
Well, he was speaking to the design review committee and how the buildings fit in. The meters, do they fall under that same microscope, I guess, of fitting in with the downtown?
Mayor and Council Register, I'm not aware of anything in the code that talks about, like, the meters. It just really covers buildings, structures, signs, those types of things. I'm not aware of anything in there that would have to do with any type of,
like, standalone
like, meters. They do address light poles in the downtown, and I think maybe it just doesn't address meters because it's new.
Yeah.
And at the time we wrote the design guidelines, we didn't have that.
Could you send me the code whenever you get a chance?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, very good, and that is it. So with that, we stand adjourned. Yes.